At the end of the day, when you remind someone of the failures, that sort of negative, it reminds them, oh, I don't want to sit in that. I don't want to be over there.
Welcome to a different practice. I'm your host, Lauren Lester, and I'm obsessed with all things business, well-being, and optimizing the practice of law for solo and small firm lawyers. I started my solo practice right out of law school, built it from the ground up, and now work part-time while earning well over 6 figures. I'm here to share tangible, concrete tools and resources for ditching the legal profession's antiquated approach and building a law practice optimized for profit and efficiency. Think of this as grabbing coffee with your work bestie mixed with everything they didn't teach you in law school about running a business. Pull up a seat, grab a cup, and get ready to be encouraged and challenged. This is a different practice. Welcome, everybody. Ooh, we got a good one today. So if I were to start my practice over, what would I do differently? I get this question pretty frequently, and I love it. I love it because the person asking is essentially wanting the cheat code. They want to know how to skip levels 1 through 9 and start at level 10. They want to use my expertise and experience to excel their practice, and that is brilliant. It's exactly why I created this podcast and offer coaching to help fellow law firm owners and entrepreneurs skip ahead and avoid the mistakes that I made. If I could go back and start over, one of the things I would do differently is implement the framework we're going to talk about today from day one. As you probably know, I am a huge fan of Donald Miller and learned about his framework a couple of years into my practice. Once I implemented it, I could really feel the wheels start to turn. All the time, I get feedback from folks about how great my website is and how they've already decided to hire me well before we even have a consultation. And I attribute the vast majority of that success to his approach. So today I'm talking with Angela Gerber, who is a StoryBrand certified guide. Among other things, in our conversation, we're going to cover the 7 elements of the StoryBrand framework and how you're likely already using some of these elements. It's just a matter of reframing them. How we can position ourselves as the guide without diminishing our expertise as attorneys, and some common mistakes that are hurting your business when it comes to getting new clients. Throughout this episode, you'll hear a common theme. Consistency is key. This is something that I've had to learn recently because I always feel like I have to tinker with stuff, that if I keep saying the same thing over and over again, it feels boring, and shouldn't I have a little bit more creativity? What I've learned in reviewing the StoryBrand framework and listening to Angela is that if you're saying the same thing every time, you know you're doing it right. Before we jump in, let me tell you a little bit more about Angela. At the Marketing Apothecary, Angela takes her marketing expertise, storytelling flair, and obsessive attention to detail to curate a strategy that makes customers come back for more. And that's because without the right marketing plan, many businesses struggle to articulate their value and engage their customers, leaving stories lost in the noise. They need a strategic partner to create a specifically formulated marketing plan to unlock their story. Whether you want to tell captivating brand stories, create perfect marketing plans, or amplify your impact, count on Angela as a strategic partner to guide you from confusion to clarity. Angela helps businesses cure their marketing. Angela is just also an awesome person. I got to connect with her through a mutual friend and fellow attorney. Thanks, Michael. Angela and I grabbed coffee, and within 5 minutes, I knew she was somebody that I could hang out with and learn a ton from. She's approachable and fun to talk to, and she really knows her stuff. She's a wealth of knowledge and is able to break down the big topic of marketing into digestible, practical chunks. So I convinced her to do a 2-part episode. Hopefully it didn't take too much arm twisting on my part. In this first episode, we're going to cover the StoryBrand framework. Then next time, we'll be back to discuss how to build off the framework and create a comprehensive marketing plan that will give you the most return on your investment. You won't want to miss it. Are you ready to dive in? I know I am. Here's the first part of my conversation with Angela Gerber. All right, welcome, Angela, to a different practice.
Thank you, Lauren. Happy to be here.
I'm excited to chat with you. We were talking a little bit offline, but we're talking about a topic today that I can single-handedly say transformed my business. There's a few things I can count on one hand that I can point to and say that really made a huge difference. There's a lot of little things, and I think there's a lot of stuff that folks can do that can help any of us. But in terms of like really changing the trajectory, what we're going to cover today has been one of those things for me. And I'm sure any listeners who have been around for a minute have heard me talk about this topic. So I'm so excited to have Angela here as the expert to actually walk us through it. And so we are going to cover the StoryBrand framework today as it relates to marketing. And I think in marketing, there's not a lot of frameworks. We have frameworks for accounting, we have frameworks for project management, we have frameworks for other parts of the business, but marketing is often this nebulous sort of thing that it kind of feels like if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, you're kind of left out of the cool club. So one of the things I love about the StoryBrand framework is it truly is a framework that can be applied to any type of business and certainly for solo and small firms. And so Angela, let's start with kind of the basics. What is the StoryBrand framework and how does it differ from the kind of traditional marketing approaches in a way that would make it particularly effective for attorneys?
Yeah, well, perfect question. And yeah, I can definitely relate. I think in my corporate world, there was a time where there's such a disconnect with marketing and traditional marketing with, we're really leaning into our services, our products. We're really heavy in this type of, it almost feels a little bit more as a, sales side of things. In traditional marketing, we almost think like we have to talk so much about ourselves. And the more that we talk about ourselves, people will just buy. And that's where StoryBrand really flips that around because in StoryBrand, it's all about your customer and it's all about making your customer the hero of the story and your business as the guide. And I think that's something where, there's such a difference in the approach. It's moving away from that features and benefits and really looking at that sort of customer and the hero's journey, as we say in storytelling. And so storytelling really allows us to break down our messaging into 7 simple parts. So it's all about who's the character and what do they want? What is the problem that they're going to encounter? How do we act as a guide for our clients? What's the plan that we give them? What's a call to action? What's a success? What's a failure? So it really just leans into this storytelling method to really connect and build trust and build engagement and excitement with our customers. So it's a very different way than traditional marketing. And I think it really lends itself to the legal field in particular, because at the end of the day, the clients that are coming to you are they're in a high stakes situation, right? They're not just like, oh, I need a little help. They need something. They have a problem. They're in a situation. There is something at risk. And they truly do need a guide. And lawyers in particular are perfectly positioned to be the guide because of your expertise, because of your authority. So I think that part in particular is really powerful. And it's great to hear that it's transformed your journey in particular, because it's really easy to think that we have to sell ourselves or get caught up in sort of our legalese and our language. Anyone that's tried to read a legal document has probably sat and stared at it for a long, long time. And so it's just a way to take that message and break it down into a really simple structure and really simple framework that people can understand. And that clarity and really connects to the customer. And I think the structure of the storytelling framework in particular lends itself to something that resonates with attorneys.
Yeah, it's not the traditional method in marketing as a whole, but definitely not within the profession. I don't even want to say we're taught because I don't think this was ever explicitly said to me. But when I got out into practice and looked around, the traditional way of talking about your practice was me, 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 me. It was like, this is the lawyer. This is how long I've been in practice. This is where I went to law school. Here's my big cases. Here are the professional committees. I mean, it was just all about them. And
Right.
so, and on a personal level, that felt weird to me. So I think I
Yeah.
was so happy to have the story brand framework come across my desk because it felt more I don't want to talk about me, 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 me. Like I don't do that normally, but it is really the only way I think we see. And so this, like you said, flipping it on its head to go, well, it's not really about us. It's about our clients and how do we communicate to them in that sense really has made a difference. But I know that there are a lot of attorneys, and I did this in the beginning, who struggle with, okay, well, I get it. But how do I clearly communicate what my value is, how I'm the guide? Because I've
Mm.
never done that or I'd never learned how to do that. So what can attorneys do to better articulate those unique benefits to potential clients that doesn't focus on them?
Yeah, and I think the storytelling framework in particular is ideal for that because there's a couple things in the framework in particular that stand out to me. One is, like we were just saying, is that sort of guide. So when you're the guide for your clients, you're really focused on two things. You want to look at your empathy and your authority. And so obviously the authority piece is easy for you guys, and it's something that we often think that we need to lead with our authority, but we don't want to lead with our authority. The more that we can lead with our empathy, we understand those things can be really impactful, leaning into the problems that our clients are facing. So if we've got a problem that they're facing, you can lean into that as sort of a hook. Then you can bring in sort of that, what do you do? Paint a picture of success. We can help give you this sort of peace of mind that will solve this really big struggle that you're going through. So, this kind of contrast of problem, solution, success. I think that framework can be really impactful. And then that, again, that empathy and authority, because again, it's the more you empathize with your clients, the more you're talking about their problems, how you understand that. I think it's really clear that you don't have to be just, here's all the credentials on the wall and here's all the awards I've won. I think it's just really about leaning into some of those things. So, problem, being really clear on that problem, I would say something that's really important. Bring in your solution, that guide. And then again, what's that positive outcome? How do you help them overcome that? Because at the end of the day, that ability to transform, that ability to help someone through something is so powerful. And I think that's where, especially from a legal perspective, people want someone to help them overcome something. And that's where using that guide language is so powerful because at the end of the day, in storytelling, the guide is the expert. The guide is someone who's already overcome the struggles and can relate to what the hero is going through. And so your heroes need guides to sort of navigate that. And I think again that positions itself perfectly to that approach of clients coming to you, needing help, needing you to help navigate a journey, and then you uniquely providing something like that to them. So I would just lean into those things.
I always took away from it, it was a different perspective. It's almost like
Yeah,
if you had a ball in the middle of the room or the earth, let's say, in the
right.
middle of the room, and you just looked at it from different corners. It's the same earth, but you're taking a different approach. And so I know as part of the story brand framework, and you just said, right, the authority that we have as the guide, how does the hero know we've been down this road and we know how to get there? The authority is still really important, but where I think attorneys miss the mark is they lead with that and they never connect. How does my authority? So your expertise as an attorney is still super valuable
Right.
because you've gone down more complicated journeys, and you've helped other heroes deal with the more treacherous mountains that they've climbed. So it's not to diminish the authority in terms of the expertise that the attorney has, but to just reframe it in a way that's, how does that authority and expertise help the client get where they want to go? Is that fair?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. I would kind of sum it up in two ways. One is people like to list their services. I help people with tax planning, divorces, these like services. Okay, well, that's fine. But how do you take just a service offering and turn it into something that's a benefit, turn it into something that helps them overcome? Like, we offer contract review. Okay, well, that's great. What about if it was like, we help safeguard your business interests through meticulous contract review? Anything that you can do to sort of paint this vivid picture of transformation, of success. I think those types of things are really powerful. So moving away from that list of services mindset to that sort of transformational, that benefit. So I would say that's one thing. And then even the story brand, in story brand, we like to use a one-liner, and that's saying the problem that you solve, the solution you offer, and how you make their lives better. So leaning into that struggle, that problem, that creates a really powerful connection with your customer. And then when you're talking about your solution, that's again where you you bring in a service, and you can use that empathy, that authority there. So it's giving, again, that comfort, that peace of mind to help them overcome something. So I would say both of those things, both that one-liner format and then moving outside of how we just think of services in boxes and how we communicate that to our clients, can be really impactful from a legal perspective.
Can you talk a little bit about, because you mentioned it in the beginning, one of the 7 parts of the framework is the quote unquote failure. And the way I always understood it was, what does life look like if the hero, the client, doesn't get help from you? Can you talk about how that may not be the first thing? You don't want to start with that. That's not where we lead, but it
Right.
is helpful to bring it into the fold. And what's a good way to do that? Like, when is that done? Is that kind of more in the sales process when you maybe have someone who's on the fence and you're like, well, let's kind of go down this path just so you can see what that looks like? Or is that something we should have on our website somewhere, or something that is after the success part of it? Here's how I can help you. But if you don't get help, here's what things might look like.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's something I think we're afraid to talk about negative. Like, we don't want to remind someone of something bad, but it's really powerful in our messaging, because at the end of the day, there needs to be almost like a consequence for not taking action. So it's like, I call it almost like a fork in the road. You call someone to action, you're like, schedule this call, and they can decide. And so there really has to be something at stake to drive them to make a decision. And so the success and failure can be really powerful, because at the end of the day, when you remind someone of the failures, that sort of negative, it reminds them, oh, I don't want to sit in that. I don't want to be over there. It's kind of that, just push on the bruise just a tiny little bit. You don't have to go down a deep, dark hole, but reminding them of what you might continue to be stuck. You'll continue to struggle with these. You might lose money in the long run because you were scared to make an investment up front. And I've been in situations where I can figure this out on my own, and it went south really quickly. And so I think it needs to be subtle. And then contrasting that with the positive, it's a great way to, again, it's creating a vision for someone. So the more that we use those vision type language in our messaging, people get it. Oh, do I want to know that I've resolved this situation and it's all taken care of and it's not going to come back to me? What a relief. Or do I want to struggle and continue to wade through this? It evokes this emotion, this feeling in our customer. So I think it's actually a really powerful thing to use. You don't have to go down a rabbit hole, like I said, but it's a great tool. And I would highly recommend there's several places that you can use it. One is on your website. So actually the second section of your website. So as you scroll down, I typically recommend with people put the pain points or some failures there because again, it's like it connects with them. Like, are you struggling with this? Do you see yourself like down the road stuck? And it's a great way to go, oh, I'm feeling that and I don't want to be that. And then that next section on your website can be that success. Well, what if instead you knew that this was taken care of? You had a guide by your side. You had the expert advice that you needed to translate that really complicated legal document that you just received. So it can be really powerful on your website. You can even use it in email communications. Just could be kind of it's a good compare and contrast. So you don't have to go hard, but websites, email communication, I would highly recommend. It's a great opportunity to use that there.
I love the visual of that fork in the road because we always hear about the call to action. Make sure your call to action is clear, but what are you really calling them to do? Like they have to make a choice, right? We can't
Yes,
just say there's only one direction. That's not really calling them to choose anything. It's just keep
right.
going down that path. So really thinking about it as there is the sort of success vision. And then if they can choose alternatively to not engage or to go down a different path. And yeah, what does that look like? And really being able to contrast the two.
Yeah, and like I said, yes, you can call them to action and you must, and it's very important that we have clear call to actions on our website. One of the stats I read, it says 70% of businesses don't have a clear call to action on their website, which is mind-boggling. But if you call them to action and then they see the stakes, there's something at risk if they don't click that button, if they don't send you that email which side of the road do you want to be on? Do you want to win the day or do you want to be stuck in the mud, so to speak?
Yeah, and that's I'm sure exactly how a lot of clients feel who are facing a legal issue. It's yeah, they feel really stuck and I don't know where to go. And this gives them an opportunity to get out of that. What are some of the common mistakes that you see solo and small firm attorneys, business owners making in their marketing efforts? And how can they make even small tweaks using the StoryBrand framework to improve those issues?
Well, I think you said it at the beginning, Lauren, it was talking about themselves. So it's so common. We feel like we need to talk about ourselves. We need to validate ourselves, and people will want to work with us because we have this laundry list of credentials. So I think mistake number one is talking about yourself. So again, StoryBrand is shifting that. So your customer is the hero, you are the guide. And that's a really powerful way to transition that for a lawyer. The second thing I would say probably is jargon. It's easy to like for you guys, the legal language is like second nature and it makes perfect sense to you, but to the everyday person, it's so complicated and you read it and you think, I think I know what that means. So, stay away from that legal jargon. Clarity is key. We say at StoryBrand, if you confuse, you lose. If you use too much jargon, if you overwhelm someone with too information, that's, another mistake I see people make. Like, oh, well, I need to tell you all the things. And then here's this 20-page legal document to top it off. That overwhelm, that confusion is going to lose your customer. You're going to get confused. And so lawyers, I think, have that opportunity to take that clarity, that simplicity of the StoryBrand framework and turn that into something that can be really powerful for their clients to really understand. So I think those are a couple things. Otherwise, I would say really identify the problem that you solve. Change the script so it's not just, and here are the services I offer. Like, what problem does this solve for someone? How do you connect into their emotions, their feelings, not just here are the things I do. And so I think that you see that a lot. And so I think flipping that around is where StoryBrand can turn that into an opportunity for you to be more connected to your ideal clients.
If someone is in a consumer facing practice area, and not all of them fall into this category, but I think people can get away with just talking about their services because the consumers have become smarter. Like they understand
Right.
it a little bit more, which was a lot to put on them. And we shouldn't have done that from the beginning, but they just sort of learned and adapted. And so, saying I offer divorce services, I think a lot of folks at least understand what you do, but
Right.
there are a lot of legal consumers who don't know they have a legal problem. And even if they do, they don't know what word we're using. So you get a lot of folks like, what is probate? But if you say, hey, did your parent die? And you're trying to go through their things and make sure that their wishes are met, people get that. But if I'm like, I do probate law, they're like, oh, I don't need you. I don't have a probate issue. So I think that's where even if you have felt like your consumers kind of get it, I think we always have room for improvement because we use the terms we use in-house all the time and how we talk to each other. And that's just not how the market thinks about it.
Yeah, and that is a great point because that jargon, that insider language can turn away someone who truly is an ideal client. That to your point exactly, like they don't know they need your services because you're using a word they don't understand. But again, that visual, like I've been in a situation, like I'm dealing with this horrible tragedy, someone's died. I'm buried in paperwork trying to figure something out. I can help you figure that out. And if we set this up now, you won't be in that situation when you're already dealing with the passing of a loved one. I mean, I'm like, oh my goodness, call me now. But if you said I do probate, I would be the same. I'd go, what?
Yeah. Sounds nice. Right. You know
Yeah,
who's done this really well? I just thought of as you were talking is we would call in our industry the personal injury. Like I always think you're a personal injury lawyer, but they don't put that on their billboards. They put in a car wreck, right?
yeah,
Been hurt on the job. I mean, that's all workers' comp folks. Like they have learned, there's a couple of practice areas that learned this is how I connect with clients. And at the end of the day, for us as attorneys, we know those are ultimately all torts, but no one
yeah,
goes around, I'm a tort lawyer. Like
yeah.
people would be like, okay, don't know what
And
you
I'm like,
do.
does that have tort?
Yes.
Like, are you baking and you're doing legal
Right.
stuff? I don't know. I mean, yeah, tort to me is 100%. Yeah. I mean, that's a great example. And I even find that in a marketing perspective, I always laugh. Like, it can be as simple as saying strategy and people will sort of look at you with a glassy eyes. And if I say plan, people are like, oh, I need a plan. But do I need a strategy? Well, I don't think so. And it's really, to me, it's one and the same. But it's those simple nuances in the words that we're using that can literally change a conversation that you're having. And there's so much power in the words that we use. And that's why I think storytelling is so impactful and it can be so powerful for the legal profession because think about when you go to a movie. I mean, you're not looking at your phone, you're not looking at the notifications on your watch. You're entirely engrossed into everything that's happening in that movie and you totally disconnect. And there's that opportunity in our messaging when we're talking to our clients and trying to just make more of those personal connections where if you're leaning into that story, you're talking about their problems, like you understand that you've been in their shoes and that you can help them overcome it. And it's really easy for us to work together. All you need to do is these three simple things. I mean, it can be so impactful in your business. And again, I just think it's so applicable to the legal profession in particular because your clients really need you for something that they truly cannot solve on their own. And so like I said, I think that hero guide contrast is just such a perfect framework to use for your profession in particular.
We're generally good communicators. We're good writers. We can speak in court. We can argue and convince folks. So I think it's just another tool in the toolbox to know we
Yeah.
have the foundation. We just have to learn how to do it. We didn't all start out. I mean, I definitely didn't start out as a good litigator. I'm still not a good litigator. But for the folks who are good litigators,
Yeah.
they didn't walk in being able to do that from day one. And so I think I just the reminder of we can do this because we have that foundation. We just need to learn how to communicate. And this framework is so great at helping give you the tool to be able to do that.
Connect that back to one of your earlier questions about the unique value proposition. There is so much power in that because there are a lot of attorneys. And how do you differentiate yourself in a crowded marketplace? And if when someone's saying, "What do you do?" you're saying, "I'm an attorney," the conversation's going to be over. Or they might ask you what you specialize in, or they might ask you some different questions that really ultimately don't go anywhere. It might just be a fun conversation and maybe you've got a friend to go grab a drink with later. But to the probate conversation, if you start that by saying, "Hey, have you ever been in a situation where you were lost a loved one and you're going through all their belongings in their home and wondering what their wishes were?" I mean, I do estate planning and probate law, and what that means is that I can help make sure that your loved ones are taken care of, they know what their wishes are, and you can avoid going to court and these long drawn out battles. So you can focus on taking care of your family and remembering the loved one that you've lost. I mean, that's a totally different conversation you're going to have with someone than just saying, "I'm an attorney."
One of
Or,
million. Yeah. Not very differentiating there. Yeah, not unique at all.
that story will help you stand out, and that uniqueness of how you help your customers and how you serve your clients can really just set you apart from anyone else in your field. And because at the end of the day, you might be trained in the same thing. Like, I have a degree in advertising, funny enough. And like, there's a lot, like, so it's a piece of paper, it's a thing, and I know the language, but how I've translated advertising into a marketing career, how I've translated my science into a marketing career. Like, these are the threads that we can pull on to carve out our unique story of how we guide our customers and how we're uniquely positioned to help them win the day and solve their legal woes and all that good stuff.
Yeah, you teed us up so nicely because I want to pivot and we will just start in this episode and pick back up in the next episode about how we can use the StoryBrand framework to create a consistent brand across all different marketing channels. And you just gave us a great one. Like you meet someone at an event or wherever, that's a marketing channel. And how do we use this framework to be able to make our brand consistent so it's easy for us to remember and everyone knows, oh, but you got a probate issue, you got to go see Lauren. So can you give us just a brief intro to how we can use this framework to make a consistent message across different channels? And then we will pick back up in our next episode and really dive into like what does that look like when we're networking? What does it look like on our website? What does it look like for social, etc.? But lay the groundwork for us on how this framework is additionally powerful across these different channels.
I would say, one thing, good marketing is an exercise in memorization. And so the clearer you are and the more consistent that you are, there is going to be so much power, and things in your marketing, things in your business are really going to shift. Because if you meet someone at a networking event and you say one thing and they go to your website and you say another thing, and then you send them an email and it's talking about something else, again, you're confusing your customers. You want to be known for something, be known for solving a problem and then talk about that problem all the time. Talk about it everywhere you go. And so that's one thing I would say. I would also say that the StoryBrand framework in particular it's like laying the foundation of your house. It is the foundation of your marketing elements and will give you so much that you can use across all of your marketing channels. It's not just a book of words that you put on your desk. It truly becomes a formula that you can use to bring all of that to life across everything that you do. So it's a really powerful framework that you can translate into your social media content. You can pull from different buckets of the StoryBrand framework. You can write copy for your social channels that focus specifically on problems or specifically on success. So it's a great tool. Again, you're constantly telling that same story throughout social media. Your website, I know we touched on that a little bit, but again, translating that storytelling language is so impactful on your website. When someone goes to your website, you've got about 5 or 6 seconds to capture their attention. If you can have a really powerful header of your website, that first section, and someone starts to scroll, having a really engaging narrative that unfolds as they scroll down your website can be a game changer for whether they keep reading and they schedule a call or they leave your website. So the StoryBrand framework will give you a formula that you can apply through your website as well. Emails as well. It's a great formula that you can use to structure, different types of email communications as well. Networking, we've already talked a little bit about that how do you answer that good old question, what do you do? In a way that's much more engaging, in a way that customers really want to lean into you and continue those conversations. So like I said, I'd emphasize those, but I would always circle back to consistency, clarity. That is really going to help make a huge difference with how you connect with your clients.
I'm excited to jump in next time and really talk about the plan. Like you said, I wrote it down as strategy and then I was like, oh, maybe
Yeah.
I should use marketing plan.
Yeah.
Makes more sense. But one that's intentional, that's consistent, and that also has some data behind it. So we actually know this is all great, but if we're pouring into the wrong bucket and it's not giving us a return in terms of our business, like we need to do something else. So we'll really kind of dive into that next time so that we have not only this foundation, but we put a plan together and don't take this like haphazard marketing scattered approach, which never seems to work. So we thank you so much for your time today. If anyone is already impressed, because they should be, and wants to reach out to you, where can they find you or learn more about what you do?
Well, you can visit my website, themarketingapothecary.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Angela Gerber. I've got Instagram as well, but I do have a fabulous email I send out every week. I call it Tales and Tonics, your marketing RX. It's full of fun tips, tricks, and value because at the end of the day, marketing should be fun. And I love helping people see that clarity and bringing their story to life. And just really having that, narrative that's captivating and that strategy that really helps convert. So you can find me in multiple ways and I'd love to connect. And I'm super appreciative of the opportunity and really excited to continue the conversation as we move from that story into that strategy and that plan and how can we really bring this to life beyond our conversation today. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Angela. So we will be back next time, dear listeners, with diving more into the actual plan of how to use the StoryBrand framework to create just a fantastic marketing approach for your firm. We will link all of the resources that Angela just said in the show notes, so be sure to check them out. Otherwise, we will see you next time. I'm over here giving you a virtual high five because you just finished another episode of A Different Practice. For more from this episode, head over to adifferentpractice.com/podcast for the show notes. If you found this episode helpful, I'd love it if you'd share it with someone who might like it too. Be sure to rate the show wherever you listen to podcasts, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you're ready to unleash your firm's potential, grab your free guide to the 6 pillars of optimization today. I have tried everything and made all the mistakes in building my business over the last near decade. I figured out what works and what's essential. Now I'm sharing sharing the 6 essential pillars every law firm needs, key factors for implementation, and practical tips for optimizing each. Grab your free download today at adifferentpractice.com/optimize. I can't wait to connect with you next time. Until then, keep building a different practice.